your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Locked On Coyotes. It is Monday, October 11th. It is the official week that regular season hockey returns. Once again, this is Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes. I'm your host, Robyn and Carl, joined by Carl Pavlik of 5 for Howling, as we all discuss the upcoming season. Tomorrow, there's no Coyotes games, but the first games of the regular season are here, and I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, definitely. We just had the last weekend before the season started. I think hockey fans should be prepared to never have free time again, because the hockey schedule is just 82 games of chaos that takes up so much of your life for the next couple months.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why essentially, the people, like a lot of people on social media, they make the joke where they post, a Facebook status update where it's a little picture where it says, starting today, in a relationship with NHL hockey.
I don't see too many of those. I definitely saw, I think even the Coyotes posted something where it's like, it's your last weekend before the NHL season. Hopefully you made it last. Like, you did something good to celebrate that last weekend, because you're not going to have it. I'm looking at the schedule behind me. I don't think there's a full weekend where you can have 2 games off with no NHL hockey in the next month at least. So you're going to be busy if you're an NHL fan.
You're gonna be busy if you're like us. We're providing you content daily, not just Coyotes, but Roadrunners, as well as everything else. Coyotes prospects. That is insane.
Yeah, there's multiple leagues happening right now that people in our position have to keep track on. It leads to an increase in content. During the off season, everyone's kind of used to a reduced 3 episodes of the podcast per week. It's going back to daily. I have to write a lot more. It's just it's a fun time to do stuff because there's actual things to talk about.
Absolutely. So here's what we're going to do on today's episode. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with Carl and I we're going to go through probably some of our, most anticipated storylines for the upcoming NHL season. Obviously with emphasis on the Arizona Coyotes. And then we'll just, talk about, some prospects and seeing, what's going on with them, because obviously prospects, the lower level leagues have already started. We're talking juniors here. And we'll talk about former players. There's another update on a former player that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. All of that on today's episode. Hope you guys stay locked in. So let's get started, Carl. Biggest stories for the upcoming NHL season. This is going to be an interesting season because 2021. This is the first time in a long time that we're getting a full, at least fingers crossed, a full 82-game NHL season.
Sure. And there is always the potential that something goes crazy and it gets shorter. But for right now, we have 82 games on the schedule. First time in the past 2 seasons, at least. We had, of course, the shortened season last year and the one that was cut short the year prior. And the Coyotes are going to be moving to a new division this season. First year in the Central. So there's plenty of things that are going to be going on with them. First year with a new coach. It's a lot of firsts this year.
A lot of firsts this year. And, for the Coyotes, I think that's going to be the most interesting. Like you said, moving into the Central Division for the, for the first time. Because they were, Pacific Division for this entire time. I'm trying to think, where were they before? Because I know that the divisions weren't Pacific, over 10 years ago. They were a little bit different.
I mean, at one point they were named after people, which a lot of the Canadian fans are definitely annoyed that they're no longer named after people. I generally was like, I'm a newer hockey fan. I don't care. Pacific works for me. They've been in what is essentially the Pacific Division for most of the time that I've been a fan of the team. Um, it's really weird them being in the Central, like just thinking of the team as a Central team. And then just kind of, I do anticipate there being a lot of rivalries developing. The Coyotes and the California teams are definitely a very, like, you know, there's a lot of passion, a lot of energy in those kind of games. We saw the 7-game series with the Blues last season as kind of a prelude of what the Coyotes could be in the Central Division.
Absolutely. I did a little bit of a research here because I was actually looking to see the history of divisions when things went into place. The Coyotes' first year in Arizona, they were a member, and the first 2 years actually of the Central Division.
Mm, interesting.
Then here's some fun stuff, guys. Then in 1996, the Central Division consisted of the Chicago Blackhawks, the Dallas Stars, the Detroit Red Wings, the then called Phoenix Coyotes, the St. Louis Blues, and here's your interesting one: the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Hockey is so dumb. It is just the dumbest sport imaginable. I love it. Um, yeah, that the Coyotes Red Wings rivalry kind of runs pretty deep, and I definitely think that you know we have the potential for the Coyotes entering just a new era of the franchise, and they could potentially build up a new rivalry. It may be good for them to kind of leave the same old California teams in Vegas and like really just start mucking things up with the Dallas Stars or the
Have a real Southwest rivalry with the Dallas Stars because obviously that's not working with Vegas because they're too good.
yeah. When Vegas starts getting bad again, then the rivalry will go. Or when the Coyotes get good enough, like 5 years, maybe we can get some
When they're
good.
finally emerging from the rebuild.
Yeah, or let's go with this: 4 years. So they're emerging from the rebuild. Vegas
And
is on the
Vegas is,
decline. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Meet in the playoffs. Coyotes take over. Yeah, we could develop that story. Nah. What are you most excited for this upcoming season?
I'm just interested. I'm just excited for I mean, to see more star talent again. Because here's one thing: yes, we're talking about the Coyotes moving into a different division, but we get to play other teams again, Carl.
Oh
Like
yeah,
we get to like let me bring up the Coyotes schedule. They start off by playing the Columbus Blue Jackets on Thursday.
yep.
That's a different conference even. And
And
then
then Buffalo
but
Sabres on Saturday.
yeah, then St. Louis and then Edmonton, New York, Florida, Tampa Bay. Like what?
I mean, of those teams, the only one the Coyotes played last season was St. Louis. And it's something that I've brought up a lot. Like when we were playing, like when the Coyotes were just playing teams in one division, you kind of just forgot or ignored or didn't focus on the other divisions. So like Columbus, are they good this year? I have a general idea, but I'm gonna be really surprised to see like what's actually going on Thursday. Same with Buffalo. They're gonna be bad, but I haven't actually seen them play in over a year. So that's gonna be something to actually new to watch, other than just the same teams over and over again.
Yeah, because we definitely got tired of having to see Vegas, L.A., Anaheim, San Jose, Colorado, all those teams for like what a million times. I mean, we're gonna have to see Colorado in Minnesota and St. Louis a lot, but I mean now we get to spread things out and see the Canadian teams again, see the teams in the Metro. Like
Yeah.
not only
It,
that, also see Seattle from now. Like
Seattle, whole new team. Like there's been an expansion draft. Like teams have been fundamentally changed. And it's weird. It's like it was only a year, but I think like COVID time was just really weird for everyone. So it felt much longer since we've seen any of these teams. At least for me, where like the New York Islanders are going to be on the 23rd. I cannot even tell you the last time I saw the New York Islanders play a game. I can't tell you the last time I saw them play the Coyotes, and I'm excited to actually watch something new. Variety is the spice of life.
Absolutely. The first time, too, the Arizona Coyotes will be meeting the new expansion team, Seattle Kraken, November 6th. So we
Yep.
still got we still got a little under a month away from that. But again, like there's so many other things we get to see. Like out of all of our teams that were playing up until that point, only two are teams we saw last year. St. Louis and Anaheim.
Just crazy. It's crazy how like loaded this first month is with just new teams.
I mean, that's
Well, not new teams,
but teams we haven't seen in a long time. At least
yeah.
if you're for the Arizona Coyotes perspective. But the one thing that does suck about this beginning of the schedule is all that travel. Look at this look at this. They're gonna go read this again. They start in Columbus, then go to Buffalo, then they come home to host St. Louis, then up to Edmonton, then over to Long Island, then back home again. Oh no, but then they no, it's hold on. No, yeah, then they're hosting the Oilers, hosting the Islanders, then going over to Miami, Florida area. That's obviously it's not in Miami. Then Tampa, then to DC, to Carolina, to Philadelphia, and from there all the way to Anaheim. Like,
It's gonna be tough for the team. Starting with like a heavy road trip can be really difficult. If we were expecting the Coyotes to be good this year, it would not be an opportune like start. Like I would definitely like prefer to be starting more at home. But it's going to be very testing for the players, and hopefully they're able to kind of like come together really well on the road trip and like learn, because this is a very new team that has not played together very much. There was a lot of upheaval in the Coyotes, and like just throwing a bunch of guys in the room together, they don't have the same chemistry that they may have had like with the team that has stuck together for so long.
speaking of which, we do still need to do line pairings, and I think we'll be doing that for tomorrow's episode.
Well, yeah, it all really depends on when the Coyotes make the cut,
Well, I mean,
because
we can still make our predictions because there's like for the most part, I think we have. I mean, it's like the last thing is just like what 5 players left. Like that would be so. Like maybe even if that, like maybe even 2 or 3 players left to be cut. Like there's not that much to get to. Like we can make line predictions tomorrow if we want to.
we could. I just feel like the second we make a line prediction, it's going to immediately come with like Bear doing something like crazy, like all like completely out of nowhere. Like he's like, "Oh, before this, just know we picked up 3 people off waivers and
I
traded
mean,
for a new goaltender."
here's the thing though. Like I don't think it's an issue with this because like this is like all right, this is the roster they have now. I mean, like yes, things can change, but like this is this is what's supposed to be the roster. So
Yeah.
this is what we think will be. It's not saying oh, this is what it's going to be. It's like
Sure.
based on what we know now, based off what we've seen in the preseason, this is what we as podcasters, we as members of the media can say we believe will be the first, second, third, fourth line, as well as the defensive pairings, who's going to be starting goaltender, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, the season's coming up soon, so uh, like we may even get that final roster list later today when you guys are listening to this. I'm not sure. Especially when we look at kind of how Bear has done some of the cuts, like sending Dylan Guenther really early. We may get that full roster right away, and we don't have to necessarily wait. But yeah, we can definitely do it where we're making those predictions and saying like these are the guys who stood out in training camp and preseason. They seem like they have the good spot for the roster.
Absolutely. Speaking of Dylan Guenther, we got to talk about that guy because he had the start of his WHL season just earlier this month. We'll talk about that in just a sec.
But first, does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings live TV and on demand favorites together like never before so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So let's get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
All right. Back here on Locked On Coyotes. Once again, Robyn Leonio and Carl Pavlik as we're getting ready to discuss the beginning of the NHL season. Once again, the first NHL games are tomorrow. I think one of the games is a Pacific Division matchup, Seattle and Vegas. I'll be watching that one. That'll be fun. But anyways, let's start talking more about the upcoming season, and maybe actually we'll put it this way. Let's talk about prospects because Dylan Guenther was sent back to the WHL. And that season started at the beginning of this month, shortly right before he got sent back. So I believe his first game was on the 2nd.
Yes, his first game was on October 2nd. He was sent back the day of their premiere on the 1st, but he wasn't able to play that game. He played the next. So far, he's played 4 games with the Edmonton Oil Kings, and he has recorded 2 assists, and he is currently a -3.
Yeah, and a lot of those people, people will rave about plus minus. I'm not the biggest fan of plus minus. It tells you very little.
It really doesn't tell you much. I will say for some, like it provides like a base level that if you can get more information, you always should. For something like the WHL, like it's really tough if you're not watching these games. They're not being extensively documented. Like we don't have his Corsi rating for WHL games, so
I mean, we
kind
could
of
try
got
to find it if we wanted to. I'm sure someone has it, but
yeah. I'm sure someone is out there looking for it, but sometimes you just kind of get what you can. And yeah, it kind of. What do you think of the start? 2 assists. It's not too much, but it's only 4 games. What do you think of him?
I mean, I think the best way you can analyze this is the slow start of the Oil Kings can be credited to the fact that he literally jumped right back in with the team after spending a whole 2 months in Glendale trying to make the Coyotes roster. And he's working a significantly different scheme, a significantly different style with different players. And he played with this team like 12 games last year, but you have to readjust because you had a whole offseason and all this. So this is his
Absolutely.
adjustment period.
Yeah. It can sometimes take a lot of time because the stuff that he's working on in an NHL practice, maybe not necessarily the same stuff that he's going to be doing in a WHL practice. He's not working with the same caliber of players. He's not like being like, all right, I got Nick Schmaltz as my center. I'm not sure who he has centering for him in the WHL, but it's completely different. So you do expect there to be a little bit of a slow start.
I mean, especially let's put it this way with we're at this time we're not like WHO experts. We don't even know how good the Oil Kings are. So
My general impression is that they're expected to be pretty good. Just kind of reading a lot of stuff that was kind of coming out with him being prepared to be sent back. A lot of places we're talking about like, if Dylan Guenther returns, the Oil Kings are going to be good. They've had 2 rough seasons, but like you said, we're not watching the game, so can't be sure. I only know a couple of preseason predictions from admittedly Homer sources because if you're writing about the WHL, you're very big into the WHL.
I mean, I mean, there are some people who probably are like sports reporters. If like, let's say you live in, I'm going to put Medicine Hat, and you're going to have to
Yeah.
cover the team there. Like, there's nothing else you can. So like, if you're assigned to cover sports, then yeah, I mean, then yeah, the Tigers are going to be your only team. Like, yeah, that makes sense. But
And I do kind of wonder sometimes when you have players get sent down, just because people players are people. Is there ever kind of like an emotional thing where is Dylan Guenther like upset that he didn't make training camp and
yeah, that's a good
needs a
point.
couple of days to just kind of like get his head straight and be like, no, I don't need to question myself. I need to focus on what everyone's telling me to do, all my trainers, all my coaches, and just kind of get into the right headspace and not worry about the fact that I was cut from the team.
Hey, likewise, you can take a look at you can even say it gets into his head in a different way. Maybe when he got sent down, and like Tournay or the development coach was like, "Hey, we want you to work on this while you're in the WHL," and he overthinks that.
Yeah,
That
it
maybe
could.
he's forgetting about what made him a good, and he's just like, "Oh, yeah, I have to work on this, so let me do this."
Yeah. Uh, because that's what we always hear. Like players get sent down from training camps and NHL coaches are like, all right, you need to focus on these three things to do this upcoming season. Uh, and because let's be honest, Dylan Guenther, he's no longer has the goal of being drafted as an NHL player. He is now
An NHL
preparing for his
prospect.
yeah, he is an NHL prospect. He needs to kind of present himself differently and show that he is going along with what his coaching is telling him to do and focusing on what he needs to do to make the NHL next season, not necessarily be the best WHL player this year. There's a lot of overlap, but they're not always the exact same thing.
This is what makes the whole rules about major, junior, and the limits on players who can make it to the AHL so hard
Yeah,
because when you get sent back to your junior team, you also have to listen to your coach because obviously your coach had like in that team has a scheme. Meanwhile, Tucson Roadrunners, Jay Verde, he's probably like he's got Andre Tourney in one ear, pretty much
yeah.
telling them it's like, all right, this is how we're doing things.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think of where that doesn't work is just everything I've heard about the Fort Wayne Comets as an ECHL franchise. They are near independent to like a legendary status. Like I have read reports from their newspaper articles where they're just like, yeah, sure, the Coyotes organization wanted us to do things, but we felt that we knew better. And that's the only time I've heard like an affiliated franchise being like, no, we're gonna go it alone. Because like you said, the AHL, especially with the Coyotes owning them, like there's synergy for that. There's always kind of synergy when the same owner owns both things. But in general, they try and work together, and that's not really the case with the junior teams. It's just too far removed, and like these guys have their own careers to worry about.
Plus, let's be real, ECHL we've always considered like the Wild West of hockey. Um,
Absolutely, yes.
and then even though for a while ECHL meant East Coast, but still, that's
I'm
uh,
actually kind of surprised that there's not more teams like the Fort Wayne Comets in the ECHL, because just some of the stuff that you hear about that league, it's great. I want to read a book about them one of these days, just like all the background stories.
oh yeah, or just I mean like any bit of the ECHL for that matter,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
or even
It's
the
just
CHL. Obviously, we talked about that last week. This before they merged with the East Coast League.
yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like one of those things when you're the third tier in a professional like thing, like the things that you need to do to make your business go are just so crazy and it leads to so much like weirdness. Especially with the ECHL, like something you always see is the jerseys. Like every ECHL team has like three fun, crazy jerseys every year. Um, and I love it. It's weird, but we're not gonna get to see Dylan Guenther in the ECHL any ever.
No,
Let me just say
never,
that no,
never.
no, no, that would be
The
like
moment the moment he turns 20, if
Yeah,
he's not on the Coyotes yet, he will be a Tucson Roadrunner.
yeah. If he ends up with like the Rapid City Rush or whoever ends up being the Coyotes affiliate, but then like something has gone very, very wrong. Players like Guenther do not end up in the
No,
ECHL.
if you are a top 10 pick in the NHL draft and you end up in the ECHL, yeah, something is seriously wrong.
Yeah, unless you're a goaltender.
Unless you're
That
a
would be
goaltender.
that's the
No,
only
no, even
caveat.
then though, if you're a goaltender and you're drafted in the in the top 10, like you better be like you're going straight to the NHL or AHL. Like
Honestly, yeah. Like you don't see too many goalies go top 10, but they do tend to make that jump pretty quickly. So yeah, if you're top 10, don't end up in the ECHL. Unless I guess there's plenty of
unless the
legitimate
prospect
reasons.
unless
Yeah.
the prospect pool itself has been like for like let's say like for 5 years, it's just so incredibly deep. Like we're talking about a team that's going deep, deep, deep rebuild, but they don't even want to do anything with their prospects yet. But their entire AHL squad is like superstars, and there's like, oh, we don't have room, so I guess you have to go to the ECHL. That's the only exception. But the chance of that happening is extremely slim. That's never going to be the case. You muted.
It's nothing that we need to worry about. It is just a completely like the ECHL is fine, but just the way that players are drafted and developed, top 10 players don't end up there. It's just the way it is.
That is just the the way it is. Hey, but we talked about Dylan Guenther, but we talk about a prospect, but let's start talking about um a former player, someone who was formerly a prospect of the Tucson Roadrunners. And I know you guys probably figuring out who we're talking about because we have had show topics about him uh, for a couple times in the last week. And yes, we're talking about Jalen Smereck. We'll talk about him coming up just a sec. But did you guys know that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors? There's something for everyone. When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they are passionate about their favorites. If you don't know all the flavors, you're missing out. From coconut to double chocolate, salted caramel, German chocolate, and more. They absolutely is amazing. Out of these, they're 9 regular flavors. I mentioned that, my favorite overall is churro puff, absolutely soft, delicious. But German chocolate takes me back to my childhood. It really does. And that's one of the reasons why I like that one as well. If you don't know all these flavors and you want to try them, get a mix box. You get 2 of each of the 9 flavors, and then maybe from there you can pick which one you like best and get a whole full box of that. Not only are these the best tasting, though, they are also healthy too. 17, 18 grams protein, 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and 4 to 5 grams net carbs. All tasty, all healthy. If you guys go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15, you can get 15% off your order. Once again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, back here on the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Once again, Robyn and Carl Pavlik. Before we go to this final topic, I do want to thank everybody who is listening to this podcast for making Locked On Coyotes your first listen of the day. We really appreciate all your support. And, well, let's let you know, guys, if you're only finding us through one platform, let us know. We are free and available everywhere you get your podcasts, all platforms now, including YouTube. So once again, we really appreciate your support. But let's go finish out this episode. And yes, I told you we were going to talk about a former prospect in Jalen Smereck. We talked about him, Carl, you and I talked about, him facing racism over in Ukraine. And and we talked about at one point where he kind of said that he would not play in the league that has a player who is actively being that kind of racist. And they said, again, unless he's removed from the league, like essentially like indefinitely,
Yeah.
he will not play. And we just found out that he essentially came to a mutual agreement with his club in Ukraine that he will no longer be playing.
Yep. He had said that Andre Deniskin, I believe is how you pronounce it. I may be wrong. Until he is suspended and removed from the league, he's not going to play for his club, HC Donbas. May have pronounced that incorrectly. I think we've all kind of gotten a crash course on Ukrainian hockey over the past month. Just kind of seeing this, and he's true to his word. He's not going to play for that league anymore. Which honestly, right call. Like the 13 game suspension was so ridiculously minor. Like retiring is the only appropriate response to that.
And not only that, just seeing the overall lack of response at all. I mean, you saw
Yeah.
what happened. I mean, like, you saw what happened with the general manager um, of the of the UHL. He pretty much got fired because he's pretty much said that decision was absolute crap. That
Yeah.
that should have been more like that, because that kind of stuff isn't acceptable. And he said, and he pretty much, after he got fired, he went on a Twitter thread, and he pretty much, let Jalen Smereck know that, hey, don't worry, like, no matter what, I'll always have your back.
He also corrected me when I incorrectly, I think, said that he was fired by the league as opposed to the federation.
Yeah, the federation fired him. So
Yeah.
there's the Ukrainian Hockey League, is which he's the general manager of. The Ukrainian Hockey Federation is like the overall, like, governing body of the UHL.
Yeah. Kind of like USA hockey in that kind of form. And we are seeing people who are kind of like coming to his defense um, because all these people are right. It was a ridiculous decision. It was meant to kind of silence criticism from either the American public. I don't even know how much they care about that in the Ukrainian Hockey League. Possibly the IIHF, who could still do stuff. Like we have seen people suggest that they should, you know, put in roadblocks for them to do international competition and the Olympics because they clearly do not have a commitment to having a like an atmosphere that doesn't have racists on the ice. Let's just say that. Like if a player can openly make a racist gesture on the ice, that's really like a bad sign for your league, and you're probably going to get a lot of trouble for it from a lot of people because that's just way too visual. If it was in the locker room, unfortunately, like we would probably not be talking about it. But when the guy is on camera doing it, it needs to be a conversation. And yeah, it's happening around them, and we're just kind of seeing like I don't know, like more fallout from it.
Yeah, the fallout is going to keep continuing, and again, it's sad that it had to come to the fact that Jalen Smereck is mutually terminated his contract. Pretty much said, like, I won't play,
Yeah,
like, because like that, because he, like, is no longer a prospect for the Coyotes. He kind of went to, I mean, the reason why he went to Ukraine is so he can keep playing. That's the
yeah,
thing about the people who play hockey, is they love the sport. They want to keep playing,
yeah.
but
They they want to keep playing. They go overseas to like countries that I don't know how many times he's been to the Ukraine before this, or like kind of like Eastern Europe in general. Like, sure, maybe some international competition, but I mean, that's uprooting your whole life for a season. Like, that is something very difficult to do. And now you got to deal with that. And I think something that I don't know if the league has thought about, there's going to be a lot of players, like especially American players who are like, is that really what I want to deal with? Like,
mm-hmm.
uh, it's going. It would be very hard if I was a hockey player and my agent was like, "Hey, you want to go play in the Ukrainian league?" I'd be like, "I don't want to deal with that bullshit." Like because that's what it is. Like and as a white guy, he's not gonna say racist crap to me, but I don't like being around racists.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing I'm very comfortable saying. I think that's something most people feel. Um, and if that's kind of what the league is going to get its reputation for, like that's going to be bad. You're gonna attract like either people who aren't good enough to go anyplace else, or people who enjoy that kind of atmosphere. Like I I would not be surprised if someone was like, "Oh, the Ukrainian league. I mean, sure, you get 13 games if you do something racist on the ice, but it's only 13 games." Like that's unfortunately the kind of world we live in.
I know it is. And that's the thing, and that's why I'm glad that the now former GM of the UHL kind of he did speak out about that, and he pretty much, and he's like, I firmly believe that racism has no place in hockey, and the fact that he said no matter what he'll have Jalen Smereck back, and the good thing is that you can tell it to anyone because there are people out there who are generally believe that,
Yeah.
and generally and are out there to support Jalen Smereck, and let's be real, any person of color hockey player.
Yeah, definitely. People of color have to deal with a lot in hockey. It was the last sport to be integrated. Like we still like don't necessarily do enough to honor black hockey players in the past. Um, and now Jalen Smereck's going to be caught in the very difficult position of trying to find a new job. Like while seasons are underway, like does he come back to North America? Does he try and go someplace else? Maybe Sweden? Does
The Swiss
can,
League or something like.
uh, it's it's a tough decision. Like from the outset, I would say like it seems like he made the right call in sticking to his guns, but let's be honest, neither of us are going to be the ones having to like live his life for the next couple months
No,
or
yeah,
try and find work. It's going to be probably pretty tough. But best of luck to him. I hope he lands on his feet, and you know all these people have his back now, and hopefully that can like translate to making sure that he doesn't fall through the cracks of professional hockey, because it would be very unfortunate if a year from now the story was Jalen Smereck like had someone do a racist gesture at him. He uh, ended his contract and then didn't play professional hockey again. That would be the saddest thing to have happen.
absolutely. None of us want that, and I think again, like you said, we all hope the best for Jalen Smereck in his career because again, he's. I mean, like the way I said, I watched him in Roadrunners, and he wasn't the best player, but still, I mean, he was. I mean, he was good enough to play on an AHL team for a while. Like,
Yeah.
so
Um, he was a. I saw him a couple times when he was like up in like training camps, preseason, that kind of thing. And I've been down to see the Roadrunners before, and he wasn't the best player on the team by any measure, but he was putting in the work. Didn't seem to be taking a lot of days off. Like he was making it as a professional hockey player. He went to Europe to continue to be a professional hockey player, and I hope he can continue to be a professional hockey player.
absolutely, but that's good. That's going to be our closing thought for today on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. Hope you guys enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, don't forget to leave a review, a like, a comment, whatever it is, based off whatever platform you're listening or watching on. Once again, we are available on every platform now, including YouTube. And we want to thank you all once again for making Locked On Coyotes your first listen of the day. I also highly encourage you guys to go ahead and check out the Crosscheck Live NHL season preview show. That will be tomorrow at, for our time, looks to be about, gotta do my math, about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock here, because it's like 6, 7 Eastern. So be sure to follow it, check and see what Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark have for the upcoming season. They'll have a lot of takes because they've been talking to a lot of people, myself included, of the upcoming season. So be sure to check out that show when that goes live. Anyways, thanks again, everyone, for listening to this episode. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We are at LO_Coyotes, Robbie101, Carl Pavlik FFH. Interact with us, ask us any questions, and we will answer them on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Anyways, hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. Don't forget to howl on.